Call the member for Belmont.
Thank you, Mr Assistant Speaker. I rise to acknowledge that the people in my electorate care deeply about human rights, and they also care about a democracy free of corruption. That's one of the reasons why I'm hosting the Human Rights, Human Dignity International Film Festival in Leichhardt at the Italian Forum on the 11th of December this year. I was in Myanmar, Burma, in June this year and saw the Human Rights, Human Dignity Film Festival and was really moved by the powerful films that were on display there in Rangoon. I just returned yesterday from Burma, from being an observer to the democratic elections which have taken place in that country, and hopefully it marks a momentous change in that country following the first free and fair elections. And hopefully it marks a momentous shift in human rights for millions of people, displaced people, for ethnic minorities and for the environment of that country. The people of Burma have laboured under colonialism and under dictatorship since 1962, with a national uprising in 1998, setting the scene for the previous general election, which was not respected by the military. The military failed to recognise that historic win by the National League for Democracy led by Aung San Suu Kyi. A repressive crackdown followed, which filled jails with political prisoners, and the lady, as she's well known as, was placed under house arrest for the next 15 years. Politics was deadlocked between the NLD and the military, with many ethnic groups maintaining armed opposition. Our political stalemate ensured for over 2 decades. In 2011, after years of international sanctions and economic stagnation, the impasse was broken when Aung San Suu Kyi was released and successfully contested the 2012 by-elections. The military-backed government also committed to this year's November 8 election as part of its roadmap to democracy. I was pleased to have an op-ed piece published in the Sydney Morning Herald on the 8th of November, which outlined my views around this issue. I've been a long-time observer, a founder of the Australian Coalition for Democracy in Burma, and with my rudimentary Burmese, it was an opportunity in the last week to be able to be part of that historic day. There is problems, however, Mr Assistant Speaker. The military-drafted constitution reserves 25% of the seats for the military, and the results, as we know, are being drip-fed, but it's clear that the NLD will emerge as the largest party in the 664-seat parliament. Before last Sunday's elections, Aung San Suu Kyi highlighted that any future government should focus on national reconciliation. She said, quote, "Even if we win 100%, we would like to make the government of national reconciliation in order to set a good precedent for our country. It should not be a zero-sum game where the winner takes all and the loser loses everything," end quote. Despite the tensions, the election was conducted with relatively free of violence. However, there does remain the risk that the country could descend into interreligious or ethnic conflict. The current constitution allows for the military to declare a state of emergency at the slightest threat to what they define as national unity. We as Australians need to do everything we can to promote pluralism and democracy in that country. I note my colleague in the upper house will be moving a motion which I'm confident will also be supported, and I'm confident it will be supported here in the Legislative Assembly. It notes the election, the deeply flawed constitution, calls on the military to respect the election, and expresses its support for the National League for Democracy and those ethnic parties that have successfully contested the election, but also all of those that took part in that election. We need to work and redouble our efforts to ensure that the Constitution, which means that the leader of the National League for Democracy can never become president of that country. Even though we know that her party will receive a majority of the votes, the opportunity to select ministers is still within the hands of the military elite, and the budget for the military will still be determined by the military alone, not the parliament, which was elected by the people on November the 8th. It's critical that we acknowledge as well the work of all those people, not only in my electorate but across Australia, who have struggled so long to see this important step forward. In her recent visit to Australia, Aung San Suu Kyi acknowledged the importance of the international sanctions campaign and the progress that to ensure that the progress that had been made was done so. The role of sanctions was important, and the boycott campaign was important to ensure that the progress that we have seen was in fact made. I also want to acknowledge the role of the Burmese community here in Australia, in Sydney in particular, trade unions, faith-based organisations, in particular Caritas, those members of the Greens and all of those who have supported the campaign for democracy and freedom in Burma. Finally, I want to thank, as I mentioned at the outset, the members of my local community and encourage them and other people in the community to come along to the Human Rights, Human Dignity International Film Festival film showing in Leichhardt. We'll be showing the 4 award-winning films from that film festival, which is made up of young Burmese filmmakers. who will have the support of a whole range of international organisations, Polish Aid, USA Aid and others, to make sure they can tell their story and we can keep progressing this story of this incredible country.